Hey everybody, welcome to Real Late with Chris and Craig. Craig is working tonight, but our often guest host Robert McCune's here. Hey Robert, how's it going
Chris,
tonight?
good. Thanks for having me back.
No, thanks for coming. It's always fun to talk to you, man. And good to talk pop culture. We talked behind the scenes for a few minutes, which is fun. But I love talking pop culture, so I'm excited to get to this. I kind of feel, and maybe again, I'm the old man here, but it seems like I can't go one of these without talking about old show that might be coming back. So I looked hard, and A Different World may be making a reboot. If you remember, that was kind of the show that spawned off Cosby
Yeah,
uh,
yeah.
with
It started out with Lisa Bonet from the
yeah,
Cosby Show as being the lead in that, but she was only in it for one season, if you remember. It kind of spun off from that, like on its own. Like she left after season one. I remember that show. I I'm a little. I got to be honest. I think a show set in like an HCBU or something like a historically black university or college university, I think could be really worthwhile and interesting. I think Abbott Elementary's been fantastic. It's sort of set in sort of a kind of a poor district in Philadelphia. And elementary school, so it sort of shows like at that elementary level, like a comedy about teachers and students works pretty well. But I got to be honest, I mean, like anything that's even tangentially related to the Cosby Show, I think just feels risky. Like, why do you
yeah,
try to do something that and kind of bank off of anything that's like spun off of Cosby and the Cosby Show? I mean, there's just still a lot of like, I, it's just, I talk about being canceled. I mean, is there anybody more canceled than Bill Cosby? I don't think so. So, doing anything that has a relationship to the Cosby Show, even one that's like slight as a different world, because like I said, there were no Cosby show actors on that show after the first season, and it kind of like it
yeah.
developed it as its own, and the characters on that were fleshed out, and there's some good characters on that show, and but anything that's even got like I said, even just like a thread to the Cosby Show doesn't feel like it's worth doing right now. So maybe do a show like that, but does it have to be a different world?
Yeah, I got this was a show I kind of forgot about. And it wasn't even the Cosby thing. I mean, I watched a lot of The Different World when it first came out, but it's a show that didn't really resonate with me as years went on. I
Yeah,
will say, just unfortunately, we weren't thinking that much about black culture. I mean, you and I are
yeah,
white, and we really haven't thought about as much as we should. I think with there's been kind of a rebirth in hey, we need to understand different cultures and what's going on and everything. After the unfortunate, George Floyd news, I think a lot of us kind of just kind of rediscovered, different cultures and everything. So I think with everything going on today, A Different World could work really well today, where sadly it probably was overlooked a little bit in the past. It was popular, but I don't think people got truly what was going on with A Different World. I
yeah.
am with you though. Now it says Bill Cosby was the creator of A Different World. Did he really sit down and plan it out? Or was it just, hey, this is like a spin-off from the Cosby, so we gotta call Cosby the creator. Like, I don't know what he really had to do with the original Different World, but like
Yeah.
you said everything like Malcolm Jamal Warner, he's in a hospital drama now. And Malcolm Jamal Warner had nothing to do with Cosby other than being on the show. I
Right.
kind of give him a weird look as he's on that different show. So you're right. Anything having to do with the Cosby show is a little bit different. So in some ways, it feels weird it's coming back. But in some ways, I'm kind of like, wow, this could really, really work in 2024, where it could probably do really, really good now. So
Yeah, yeah.
I'm torn. I mean, I think it could do really well, or it could
I
falter just from the stuff we talked about before.
I agree. Like I said, I think a show like sort of set in like a black university, a black college with with a predominantly black cast, I think would be well received, for sure. And I don't know, I like I said, I watched it in the '80s. It was like 87 to '93. I watched it back then. I will say it, but like I was a fan of the Cosby Show, at a time as well, in the late '80s, early '90s. I watched some of that, and it's just it's unfortunate what's come out of that. But uh I think there's definitely stories to tell in that world, and that in that world, so to speak. And I think it would be well received. I just don't think that it need. I think there are shows that need to play off of like nostalgia and name recognition. I don't think this is one of them. I think you can make a show like that and not use the name just because the name is tied up with that whole Cosby thing. So make the show, just call it something else.
Well, and here's the other thing too. I'm reading the first paragraph of the story, and it's talking about how it's going to be a single cam, half-hour comedy series. Now, it's going to be from some of the same people that did the original A Different World. I Bel Air is great. I think Bel Air shocked me a little bit because Bel Air was over the top. Um, but the funny thing about Bel Air is it addressed a lot of important issues. I think A Different World maybe shouldn't be as over the top as Bel Air is, but I'm not sure if we need a single cam half-hour comedy series. Can we have like a drama, hour-long drama? I think that might hit better than that silly half-hour comedy. You think?
I think anything today has to be a little bit of both. I don't think that there's
Okay.
anything. I don't think there are any real comedies that don't have drama involved that are successful. Like I think that most of the comedies, I think even most of the sitcoms that are successful today are actually dramedies more than they are comedies. I mean,
Okay.
because I think there are some. I think that they hit on some serious topics even on a comedy like Abbott Elementary. I think that there's some reality in that as well, and what teachers have to deal with, in the in a school district where maybe funding is hard to come by, and maybe in some cases parents aren't as involved in their children's education and things like that. I mean, sometimes I think that they mix a little bit of drama in there. I mean, not a lot. I don't know. Abbott Elementary is
Okay.
pretty funny show.
Mhm.
But I think, for example, I don't know, Ted Lasso. Bring it back to that. There's a lot
Okay.
of drama in that comedy. I mean, they do a lot of things with relationships, and they do a lot of things with. There's quite a bit of focus, particularly in the later seasons, on sort of anxiety and panic attacks and things like that. They do some real serious stuff with that. The Bear as well, funny show, very serious sometimes. There's some episodes that are very high drama. So I think most of the shows that we talk about as comedies are actually dramedies. So I don't see. I think you could do a show, yeah, and don't go over the top with it. It doesn't have to be funny every minute. It doesn't have to have a laugh track. Not everything has to be like gut busting funny about it. But tell a good story. About this generation is of college age black people, and in a HCBU like setting again. I think that could be very good, and I think it could be funny sometimes, and I think it could be serious and touch on real issues.
Well, and they're dealing with the kids of the original people in the show, so you can have a new cast. It almost calls for it. They are talking about. I'm seeing that they're in talks with some original people, see if they want to come back.
Mm,
Um, Kind of interesting. The story talks about some of the old people that have been on the show. They kind of made their mark on the show, and they went on to bigger and better things.
yeah,
I guess Marissa Tomei was on it in season one.
yeah,
Kind of
yeah.
interesting.
Uh-huh.
Jada Smith was on the last 2 years early in their
Yeah.
career.
Yeah.
You think maybe Jaden will be on one of the shows? Who knows?
I don't know about that. Yeah, I don't know about
um,
that.
I don't know about Mr. Tomei. Is she doing anything right now? I mean, could she be available? I mean, I'm not sure if she'll want to come back.
I think she could be available. I think she could.
Okay,
I think she could show up. Yeah. I
okay.
don't know. Like she was just on season one of this of the series, so she might not have had as much of a presence that like a cameo even makes a whole lot of sense. If it was someone who was closer with the leads in the old show, since the story sort of centers around the children of the um Wayne character and the Whitley character from the original series.
Hmm.
It has
Hmm.
to be someone maybe who has like a relationship with them, a little more of a relationship with them.
Okay. Yeah, I'm intrigued. I'm not. Um, I'm not desperate looking forward to this, but I'm kind of curious. I think this will be pretty interesting. I'm seeing here it was the story talked about. We talked about Cosby, and they said that this was in various stages of development throughout the years, but was paused for multiple reasons, including the legal issues surrounding Cosby. So I think if Cosby wouldn't have gotten the trouble he got into, maybe we'd have seen this 10 years ago. Who knows?
Yeah, yeah, maybe.
Be interesting.
Yeah,
I guess it'd be kind of creepy if Cosby appeared on the show. Like we don't want Cosby the kindly old professor, right?
right.
Yeah, that might be a little awkward. I don't know if we want that. So, okay. Hey, a couple other things. I don't want to get too much into business, but there's a definite pop culture with some of these stories. Wanted to see what you thought about this. Um, Craig loves Max, and I like Max too. I've had for the past couple months. Been kind of interesting. I shared with you a story saying they just took a $9 billion write down. Some of the channels are struggling. They're associated with the parent company, Warner Brother Discovery, and this is going to affect Max. I mean, nothing has been said, like if anything's being cut or what's going on. But Discovery recently lost the NBA. I'm not a huge NBA fan, but that has hurt the business. I mean, it costs a lot of money, but makes a lot of money for Discovery. So there's a little bit of uncertain what's going on. I think we'll still have Max. Will there be different channels on it? Who knows? Because there's some kind of struggling there. I don't know. I mean, I gotta tell you, Robert, I've kind of started to get myself into Max. It's got some stuff I like, my wife likes. I like the fact how there's a feed of CNN. If you need to watch news, it's there and everything else. I hope we don't miss too much of Max. I'm kind of getting comfortable with it, partly
Yeah.
because of the diversity of content. Hopefully that continues.
You know what, Chris? I think this was an inevitable situation, inevitable discussion because, I mean, we've talked about it multiple times though with the streaming war. Like all of these services have been splashing money around like it's water or whatever.
Mhm.
I mean, literally just splashing money around, making content, just cranking out content, just trying to get people in the door, just to attract, those eyeballs. And then, you want to get people to subscribe, and then basically, if they're not watching it all the time, at least forget that they subscribe, so they're still paying
Yeah.
you or whatever. But they've been spending all this money making content. I've read the same thing about Apple TV, unfortunately, and I think Apple TV's got some great content. I'm partial to several shows there, and I read that they haven't been getting the views and the revenue that they expected from some of their outsized spending that they've been doing on making content. And so potentially you're going to see some cutbacks on some of these other services as well. And like I said, I think it was inevitable. I think they were spending so much money and they weren't sure where the ceiling was, and maybe they're starting to figure out where that ceiling is now, like how much you can spend before you have to sort of start thinking about it again, and and maybe cutting back, and maybe we'll see a little less content. Hopefully we won't see a dearth of quality in content. Maybe maybe they're not making as much. Maybe they can put a little more effort into making into making really quality stuff. I was talking to my wife. We were just watching an Apple TV show before I popped on here. We watched a show on there called Acapulco, which is a dramedy sitcom about it's sort of it's interesting about it is it's kind of one of those um hold in two on two different timelines kind of stories where like somebody is telling his nephew, like this older man is Spanish man is telling his nephew about how he came up and like he's successful, he's wealthy, but he started out basically working at the pool at this resort in Acapulco when he was a kid, when he was a teenager, doing whatever job he could get and everything. And so talking about coming up, relationships and everything, romances and things like that. So I told my wife, I said, Apple TV is maybe running out of some money. Maybe they shouldn't take so long. Maybe this Maximo on the show shouldn't take so long to tell this story because what if the money runs out and then we don't get to hear the ending of
Yeah.
it? It's kind of like each episode sort of just teases out a little bit more, and that's the worst thing if you're watching a show and like it just suddenly ends and you don't get that sort of like, that kind of like release at the end of like, okay, whatever happened to these characters and stuff. That's the worst place to be. And so 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 I'm hoping that doesn't happen. I'm hoping that the shows that we like can survive. I remember though days of the cable when we were so wrapped up in shows on cable. You would
Yeah.
watch something and it was just remarkable and you liked it. It was something that was immediately appealing to you for whatever reason. Some like, maybe it was a little niche or whatever. Like I used to like a lot of sort of like quirky sort of science fiction kind of stuff. Like, I know, we watched Quantum Leap that lasted
Yeah.
obviously seasons, but I remember shows that were similar to that did not make it. Like, Early Edition, I think you remember that one, the guy where he gets the newspaper a day early or whatever. I thought that was a fantastic show. It didn't matter. I don't think it lasted more than one season. And back then, it was just like it just seemed like it was more cutthroat. Like if
Right.
a show didn't do really well the first season, you wouldn't get a second season. And with all the streaming stuff going on and all the money being splashed around, though, I think it's been a little easier for shows that maybe are mediocre to last a little longer. You can feel a little more, you can maybe feel a little more comfortable that the show you're watching is gonna last if it's on a streaming service than maybe what you were back in the cable days when it was all cable. But
Right.
maybe that's starting to shift again, and maybe we'll start to feel it. Maybe we'll start to feel it. We'll start to feel some of that pinch and pain as like some of our favorite shows go by the wayside as these streaming services have to actually start being sensible about the money they're spending and what they're spending it on.
Netflix has a bad reputation for like doing a new show and like keep around for a couple of years. Like usually like 3 or 4 has been the max for like a new show on Netflix. And yeah, I mean the show's got to do well. You can't just throw up crap. And I know not every show has to go 15 seasons. I totally get that, but yeah, give me a little bit longer of a show that I can identify with the characters with. I mean, I like that. And here's another thing too. And I know the criticism as soon as I say it. I'm old school. I like the old shows, but I think that yeah, we need new shows from each streaming service, but pick up some of the old shows like Different World. I forgot about because I've got like 4 or 5 services. I don't think any of them have Different World on there. You know, what I mean, can we pick up some of the old shows where, yeah, you're going to make your money on the new shows, but I think you're going to keep people around with some of the old stuff. I like Peacock. Peacock is becoming
Peacock
very
does
hard.
that.
Yeah, Peacock is becoming very hard for me to get rid of. If I lose all my money, I have to start canceling services. Peacock might be the last I postpone. I like the new stuff. Oh, I got to tell you about a new show I watched there before we go. But I like the fact there's King of Queens. Everybody loves Raymond.
Yeah,
What The Office. 2.5 Men. I was watching a
yeah,
couple episodes of
yeah,
that during work today. Yeah, I like that. But again, give me the new stuff too. But you know,
yeah.
can somebody pick up a different world? I mean, Peacock or somebody,
Be out
you know?
there. I haven't looked,
Yeah,
but like, we talked about the free services. A lot of the free services bank on they depend
yeah.
on a lot of that archive content because they're able to get it cheap, and then and they just kind of like fill up their content menus with a lot of that older stuff. So if you're not finding it on Peacock or something like that, you might find it on Freevee or something. Sometimes it's there.
We gotta do this sometime. I've read about shows. Like I used to like the Drew Carey show. Was it dumb? Yeah. It was kind of like the mindless comedy I like
Yeah.
some of the other stuff I like. They don't stream Drew Carey. Apparently, like I think Amazon made the first season available so you can stream it on Amazon. But that show was on for like 15, 16 years. It just went through so many iterations. But
Yeah.
Drew Carey has said, I don't want to go streaming. They were like, why can't you throw it on a streaming service? They probably would pay you for it. He's like, oh, it just wasn't my best work. I'm not going to do it. I mean, there's so much TV out there, and there's so many streaming services. You would think bring back some of the old stuff. Maybe you don't have to pay as much for the new stuff. I don't know, but you're right. I think I think we're going to still see a lot of streaming. I think you're going to see a little bit more of the bundling services. Like, I think we'll mention this in a later story, but like now you can bundle what is it? Hulu, Disney, and Max now. There's like a deal where you could do that. I think you're going to see some more bundles and everything.
Yeah.
And I
Yeah.
think just get creative for where you find the content. Don't feel like you have to make 50 new shows each season for streamers.
Mhm. I
Cut
think
back.
the problem with that Drew Carey story that you just told now, I think that underlines another problem with streaming, and that's that it's very easy to make sort of the history of TV kind of disappear. If you want something to
Yeah,
disappear in a streaming world, it's very easy to make it disappear. And
yeah,
then it's nowhere to be found. If you didn't buy the box set or whatever when it came out on DVD in 1997 or something, then it's like almost impossible to find. And if you do have it, then you're probably on eBay selling it to somebody who's desperate to watch it again for like $200, like So I mean, that's the thing. I mean, it's very easy to make things disappear, to almost kind of rewrite sort of like television history in a way, like this never existed, and that's too bad. I think that's one thing you never had to worry about with physical media, with DVDs and Blu-rays and things like that. If you had it, you had it until I guess it. I mean, you spilled a Coke on it or something like that, and, like ruined it or something, like. But no, I mean, like now it's at the hands of people like Drew Carey, who maybe doesn't like that work and doesn't want anybody to see it again, so he can easily make it disappear. It's the same thing with like sort of got somebody in in an ivory tower, like a big wig at a corporation or something, that just says like, what, I don't want that show to ever be seen again, and it's just like wipe it right out, just delete it, take it right off the service, and you never see it again. You heard that about like some of these things that Max in particular they were throwing money into, and then they just decided not to release it, and it's like it never happened. And I think that's too bad.
I've got box sets of like the Seinfeld and Office. My top two, and half of me is like, I could stream it, but then half of me is like, I mean, I don't think Seinfeld and Office is going to go off streaming because I know they make a ton of money for their streamers. But what Netflix costs $30 per month. I'm like, I don't want to pay $30. Now I lose access to the Office. I don't know what to do.
Yeah.
And the problem right now is if you sell your Office DVDs, you're not going to get that much money for it because it's on streaming.
Right.
It was funny.
No, sell your Drew Carey DVDs. That's what you're going to get money off of. The stuff you can't find on streaming. So
you know what stunned me? Eh, yeah, I told you a story, and if people don't know, like I took a break from journalism for about 6 months, a couple years back, and did some freelance work. Got back into journalism. Got hired in by a TV station, Columbus, NBC affiliate. I'll be honest, I don't watch that much regular TV anymore. I was stunned, Robert. Just being at the station, working the newsroom and everything. We had the TV on all day. So, obviously you can see what's on NBC as well as the other channels. You would not believe how little anything else the news is on local channels anymore. It's stunning. Like it
Yeah.
used to be that, like, on Fox, you might have, two episodes of, Frasier or Seinfeld or one of those shows. They don't do it anymore. And I never asked, leaders there, well, why? But the thought is okay, it's on streaming, it's on DVD. You may not get that many people watching.
Yeah.
I mean, if you have access to every episode of a certain show on streaming, what's the point of watching season 3, episode 4 on Fox at 11 p.m.? So people aren't doing that anymore. But yeah, it's stunning. I mean, you see local news, and if it's not local news, I think like for a while the NBC affiliate was picking up some like CNBC show, and they would put on NBC like at 2 in the afternoon. Yeah, it was crazy how much that stuff's changed. It's
Yeah,
wild.
yeah. I haven't dipped into cable for some time, but yeah, I imagine it's quite a different world. Back to it's our original topic. That's like
Yeah.
all that. No, but I on that the physical media thing, like I remember some years ago, my son was young, and those the live action Transformer movies started coming out, and my son was really into some of the Transformer toys and things, and we would go to sort of retro classic, sort of like toy stores, and he'd dig through like bargain bins and stuff and pull out these Transformers. He was really into that for a little time. And then I thought, like, well, wouldn't it be great if you could watch some of those old cartoons that I used to watch when I was growing up? And so I went on like eBay or something like that and bought a box set. It was very hard to find, but I found one, and I paid more than I should have for it. And when it came to me, it was all like the box and the like the inserts and everything, and the language on the menu screens and things like that. It was all in Chinese.
Wow.
It
Wow.
was really funny. You could watch it, but like I never knew what we were watching because all the titles and
Wow.
everything were in Chinese. It's just like I just one of those things. Like and I think I sold it to somebody else some years later, probably for cheap. But uh,
Wow. That's wild.
yeah,
Um, it, I something came up, and I'm not. I mean, for my business, I'm in the news. I need to watch the news. I kind of get weary of going into all the political talk and everything. But I got to tell you, Barbara, I'm really intrigued by this. I saw a story today. CNN is going to do some free ad supported programming that you can pick up on some streaming services. They do a lot of documentaries. Now, some of them are based on politics, some of them are based on other stuff, but they're going to start to, it's a new free ad supported streaming TV channel. They call it Fast for short, but it's going to be all based on documentaries they do from Anthony Bourdain, Lisa Ling, Christiane Amanpour, and they're doing things on relationships, kind of general life things. I know Anthony Bourdain, and really sad to see him go. He's no longer with us, but he did a lot of stuff about food and everything. I don't
and
know, Robert.
travel and yeah, like
Yeah. Oh, he
mhm.
was amazing. I miss that guy a lot. But I like the fact that it's available for more people now. And I'm assuming with it being streaming, you can look at past episodes and everything. Now it's ad supported, but for people that maybe don't do cable or whatever, you can access it on Amazon Freevee, Fire TV, Prime Video, Plex. There'll be more platforms supporting it. I kind of like the fact that some of this content is available for free for more people. Now you have to sit for probably a million commercials, but I like the fact it's available. I wish more networks did that. We talked about maybe older television. I think there's an environment for that. I have a Roku player, a Roku channel. They give you some free programming, but to give you these channels, and if you want to watch programming, you just sit for ads and you could see a ton of stuff. And the content's get a lot better. So again, I have access to Max now, so I can get all these programs without advertising. But I love the fact that it's being made available for more people. And I wish more networks would take advantage of it. I'm hearing more and more about like maybe Peacock offers some more programming for free where you don't have to pay for it. You have to sit for ads. But I kind of like that. I think it helps the budget conscious consumer for one. But two, I think it's another way of generating revenue for these stations because if Peacock can keep their people on a streamer, hey, if you're on there watching a bunch of ads, they can charge for those ads. It's more money, it's more revenue, but provides free content to viewers. I think it's a win-win. I kind of like that.
I think it's great too, and um I do like that. I like that like most of the streaming services have a sort of lower price model that includes ads on it, and a higher price model for people who don't want to sit through the advertising. I think that's great.
Yeah,
I think the free services, that the sort of the free entertainment services, it's really remarkable if you think about it, because like today you could not have a cable subscription or subscribe to any of the streaming services and you'd be just fine. There's so many
yeah,
free services. There's so, a lot of people just sort of like rely on YouTube. So if you have Wi-Fi, if you have an internet account, then you're a lot of times set. There's so many ways to consume media where you don't have to pay for it today. I think that's really interesting because I remember back in the day when it was just cable, and or maybe you'd have a satellite dish on the top of your TV or on the back in your backyard. When I was a kid growing up, I had this giant satellite dish in the back of our yard. It was on a pole, and it was like, like the thing you like looks like something you see at like NASA or something like that. And
yeah.
and, and like you'd get so much for that. You'd get so many channels and things, but like not anything near like what you get today. And if you wanted to watch anything free, like what option did you really have? You get like the bunny ears thing and you put it on top of your TV set and you try to like bounce off like a signal somewhere and you get like this fuzzy image, you get the audio, and that was kind of the best you could hope for. But today you could ride like whatever like content like wave, TV wave, you watch all kinds of stuff and not spend a dime on it. And I think that is remarkable.
Well, and I remember the first time I ever heard about streaming TV. My brother-in-law had a Roku, and he was showing it to me. And again, this was when streaming first came out, very infancy. There was some programming available for free, but I had no idea what it was. It was kind of like stuff that I really had no interest in, and I wasn't sure why he would watch it. I mean, it was just like garbage TV, like kind of amateurish stuff like that. I guess you had to be really in a goofy mood to watch that stuff. But like you
Yeah.
said now, I mean, yeah, you have to sit for commercials, which okay, that's fine because it's got to be paid for some way. You can't just get everything for free. But man, you could have whatever. I mean, my daughter likes what was that, Deal or No Deal, on Roku channel. There's a channel that you literally could watch Deal or No Deals all day. So like
Mhm.
sometimes when she's restless, I'll flip it on. She gets a kick out of it. She likes Price is Right. She calls it the Wheel Show. There's a
Mhm.
channel in there with nonstop Bob Barker Price is Right shows. Now, again, I never think we should podcast about it. I'm not saying I'm going to become a big Price is Right fan, but if you need something, it's there and it's free. Oh, it's fascinating. It's kind of interesting.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, like you said, I mean, like how many, they've been making TV now for a long time, and so there's a lot of content out there, and it doesn't have to be the new stuff. I mean, yeah, I mean, if you want to stay current and you want to watch the shows that everybody's talking about, and the shows that are winning awards and things like that, I mean, they're making some really, really, really great television. I think we are in a golden age of television. I think television budgets and streaming budgets are rivaling some of the big budgets that were only spent in the past on those big blockbuster summer movies and things. You have some shows that are really expensive to make, and they're really high quality. But if I mean, and if you want to be on the edge of that, you're probably going to have to pay something for it. But if you just want to watch some good TV, you just want to watch something, before bed, or you want to watch You got some like an hour like after dinner every night or something like that. You want to watch some old game shows during the day or something. If you gotta, I remember, when I was a kid, you stayed home sick, like all you could really watch were like the old game shows that were on during the day. It would be The Price is Right, and it would be, Let's Make a Deal, and it would be, things like that. Um, Wheel of Fortune. I remember you'd be sick from school and you'd be like there on the couch, and your mom's bringing you like chicken noodle soup and you're watching old game shows and stuff. You can do that and like now,
Yeah.
and you don't have to pay anything for it. You can do that all day.
Yeah, and the only thing I was going to say, and the last topic we had, we mentioned this before. There's a new deal where, it used to be, what was it? Hulu, Disney, ESPN Plus. You could bundle together. You can still do that if you want, but now you can bundle together Max, Disney, and Hulu, which is, it looks like a pretty good deal. I may check that out. The only thing I miss, Robert, and I think we've talked about this before, is like I remember when you and I worked together, we liked pop culture. Sometimes we talked about TV shows, and there was still a million cable channels when we worked together like 15 years ago, or whatever. But at least you were in the same ballpark. You know what I mean? Not maybe I came in and said, "Hey, I'm watching this channel." You're like, "Oh, I don't watch this channel," but at least you could watch something if you really wanted to. I
Right,
think the only thing we're missing with all these paid streaming services is like I don't have Netflix. Now I read enough where I understand what the shows are, but
right,
you can tell me, man, Chris, watch the show on Netflix. Until I subscribe, I can never watch it. I miss
right,
the whole shared thing because if we all subscribe to different services, you and I are living off in different entertainment worlds and
right.
we'll never collide. I wish we had
Unless
like
you're
that
a person
wired
that's
harmony.
like a millionaire and you can subscribe to everything because like
Yeah,
there's so
right.
many services out there. If you bought it all, if you bought it all every month, you'd be paying out a pretty stiff, price for it. But yeah, you're right. I mean, we have lost some of that shared experience, I think, from that.
I kind of wonder, and I don't see this happening soon, but I think we're kind of going off in that direction a little bit. I've heard some people say there's so many minor services that adds up. How do we keep track of everything? I think we're seeing some more bundling deals where, like, you see Max and Hulu and Disney together. There was some talk earlier this year about how Paramount and Peacock they would either combine services where it's all one, or maybe they're bundled together. I'm hoping more places do that, so maybe more of us have similar channels. Like, I'm not saying let's go back to cable, but I'm hearing like in sports, Venue Sports is trying to bundle together some of the big sporting things. I'm wondering if they could do the same thing with like movies and TV shows, where maybe you come up with a package where you bundle together Netflix and Max and something else big. And then if a lot of people subscribe to it, at least we'll get a shared sense. I'm not sure if it'll ever happen, but it'll be interesting to see if more bundling is available like that. I don't know.
Yeah. I think the other thing about the shared experience thing, though, like, yeah, I think you're right. I think if we're more on like a level playing field from the start, like we all have sort of like the access to those channels, I think there's something to that in that shared experience. But I think the other big piece of like the shared experience from the cable days, at least, was like when you watch something, um, and if somebody else was watching, you knew you were watching it at the same time. You're watching it live, like on TV, like the Tuesday night show. You're like everybody's watching it on Tuesday night at 8 o'clock or whatever. And now with streaming, and I think there's obviously there's still some of that going on. Shows time like the release of like their episodes and things like that. Sometimes they'll dump a whole season. Sometimes they'll drop episodes like at a specific time on a specific day so that you get a little more of that shared experience. But like honestly, there's hardly anything that I watch the minute it comes out or live anymore. Most of it is like, I'm watching like days, weeks, months, maybe
Yeah,
even years after everybody else watched it.
yeah,
And that's I think there's a loss to that too, because it was almost like, you think about like TV came out and there were when I'm not this old, we're not that old, but like our parents and things, they had TV, first got it, like they had a box and it had maybe 4 channels on it or something like that, and 6 channel, and gradually more and more. But like you gather around as a family and you watch TV, and like people all over America were doing that, and it was a community, and you sat down
Yeah.
and you watched, you sort of like momentous, things happening. Like you watched the space shuttle launch and things like that, and you watched history happen, and also like the first episode of whatever show, what like yeah, a show that went on. You didn't know if it was going to go on to be this great show, but you like it. It's a new show. The first episode, there's not anything else to do. You're going to turn it on and watch it, and then it ends up being a show that's like iconic. Like I
Yeah.
don't think of an
Yeah.
old show like MASH or something like that that becomes an icon. Like people sat down to watch the first episode. I didn't know if it was going to be great or not, but so many people watched it at the same time. And with the we don't that shared experience is I think it's diluted some with the streaming services and just the proliferation of content.
I'm not even sure if we could watch MASH from streaming. I gotta look that up. I haven't thought about MASH for a while. Is MASH available on any streamers? I don't know.
I don't know.
Yeah. Hard to say. Hey, I've got to cut out in a couple minutes. We got a couple big interviews coming up. I want to tell you about real quick. Greg Allen Martin. You might recognize the name. He was on a couple of oh, trying to figure out. Oh, he was on Young and the Restless, and he was also on the season of Ozark. He is starring in the PureFlix show. It's out now called Shadrach. He plays a rancher. He's going to be coming on. We're going to interview him. Hopefully, we'll have that up tonight with this show. And then Robert, I've been distracted this week. The Pittsburgh Steelers are making some news. They're trying to get a well-known wide receiver. Lots of trade rumors. This is never ending. So we're having Nick Farabaugh on from Penn Live. He covers the Steelers. He's going to give us the latest on what's happening. Who knows? Maybe the trade happened by now, but this has been a pretty big story in the NFL world, and we're happy to have him on to talk about that. Robert, real quick before I go, because I've got about 3 minutes left, I want to tell you about the show I've been watching on Peacock I'm liking. Those About to Die. I actually got through the 6 seasons. Well, I mean,
Six
sorry,
episodes.
6 episodes. Yeah, 6 seasons have been crazy. They just released it. It's kind of like the Roman Empire version of Game of Thrones. Um, it's kind of like they call them Colosseum something different, but they call like Nero and everything. So I'm not sure what's 100% historically accurate or not. But they have storylines going on with the rulers. They have storylines going with the gladiators who are fighting in the arena. Kind of an interesting show. A little crazy at times, kind of violent at times, a little intense, like
Much
sexually
of
at
a
times.
How big a role does Anthony Hopkins play in it? That's what I'm curious about because that's the big name in it, right? I think there are a lot of
Yeah,
unknowns, but Anthony Hopkins is a pretty big name.
yeah, I can't remember exactly what he did. Here's the issue I'm having. Don't watch shows like that while you're trying to do work because you can't really pay much attention.
Right, right.
There's parts I can tell you about. There's parts that have slipped my mind, but check it out sometime. Very Games of Thrones. Some hot scenes, some violent scenes, kind of like on Game of Thrones, but kind of interesting. Um, One of the spookiest things, again, it's a show, so obviously it wasn't real life or anything. You know how like some of the gladiators they would what do you call it? Put a lot of water in the Coliseum and have like fights with boats and everything. They showed one of these where they put traders on a boat and they put alligators in the Coliseum, and the alligators mauled all the traders. Oh, it was gross. It was there's this guy tied to a pole on the boat, and this alligator jumps up and snaps this guy's head off. Where the alligator went up like this, like the guy's like tied the boat like that. The alligator went up and go boom, and pretty much eats the guy's head. I'll tell you, Robert, I don't want to die either way, but if you said, okay, Chris, you're going down, I'm going to execute you. What's the worst way that you could die? probably have it being mauled to death by animal. That would be it. So
Yeah, head
I'm
chopped
sure.
off by an alligator while you're tied to us. Yeah, like a
Yeah,
yeah. That's a pretty bad one. Yeah. I'll check it out. It took me a while. I think it took me like 3 tries to like actually get into Game of Thrones. And I had a friend who just kept insisting that I give it another shot. And I think I watched the first episode and I was like, it's not for me. And then I gave it up and I went back later and I finally did get into it and I watched it all the way through. I'm not watching the House of Dragons spinoff or whatever. I was kind of done. But yeah,
yeah.
maybe I'll check this one out. I'll let you know.
Sounds good. All right. Well, thanks, Robert. I hate to cut this short, but like I said, got an actor waiting for me, and if he's early, I don't want to keep him waiting. So, for Robert, this is Chris. Thanks for checking us out. Have a great day, everybody.
See ya.